They told me not to go near it at night. They said the old baobab near the dry riverbed had a spirit inside it. But I didn't listen. Now, as I hide in the hollow of another tree, trembling, I hear its roots dragging across the ground, searching for me. It started on a Tuesday. I remember because the elders were meeting in the village square. They always gather on Tuesdays to talk about crops and rains. That's when I heard my uncle, Bobatond, mention the baobab tree again. The tree is restless, he said, his voice low like he didn't want the spirits to hear him. Last night, I heard the ground rumbling. The baobab is moving again. Everyone went quiet. Even the kids, who had been laughing and chasing each other, stopped playing. The only sound left was the clucking of the village hens. I didn't believe him. Bobaton always told stories. He said it was to teach us respect for the land, but I thought he just liked to scare us. I was 16, too old for silly stories about trees walking in the night. That evening, I decided to prove him wrong. I told my friend Deka, let's go see the baobab. I bet it's just some animals digging near its roots. Deka was nervous. You know what they say, Kayin. The spirits of those who die far from home rest in that tree. It's not for us to disturb. Those are just tales to keep kids from wandering too far, I said. Are you a child? He shook his head, but his hands trembled as he carried the lantern. The path to the baobab was quiet, except for the usual sounds of crickets and the wind brushing through the grasses. The moon was half full, casting a weak light over the landscape. When we reached the tree, I stopped and stared. It was massive, its branches twisting toward the sky like frozen arms. The roots bulged out of the ground, thick and knotted like old muscles. The air felt colder here. I could hear my own heartbeat. See, I said, trying to sound brave. It's just a tree. But Deka wasn't looking at me. His eyes were fixed on something behind the tree. Kayin, what's that? I turned and saw the ground shifting. At first, I thought it was a trick of the light, but then I heard it, a deep, groaning sound, like the earth itself was waking up. Slowly, the baobab leaned to one side. Its roots began to lift, one by one, pulling free from the soil with a wet, sucking noise. We need to leave, Deka whispered, his voice cracking. But I couldn't move. My feet felt like they were stuck in the ground. The baobab's massive trunk twisted, and for a moment, it looked like a face, eyes hollow and dark, a jagged opening for a mouth. It let out a sound, low and guttural, that sent chills down my spine. Then it started moving. The roots dragged behind it, scraping the dirt like claws. Its branches creaked, and the sound reminded me of bones breaking. I don't know how long I stood there, frozen, watching it. All I remember is Deka grabbing my arm and pulling me back toward the village. When we got back, we ran straight to Bobaton's hut. He didn't seem surprised when we told him what we saw. Instead, he looked tired, like he'd been expecting this. The walking baobab, he said. It walks when it's angry. Someone must have disturbed the spirits. Disturbed? I asked. How? Baba turned side. There's a reason we don't cut wood from that tree or dig near its roots. That tree is older than our village. Older than our ancestors. It holds the restless spirits of those who have no home. If someone disrespects it, the spirits wake. I wanted to argue, to say it was impossible for a tree to move on its own. But I had seen it. I had heard it. What do we do? Deka asked, his voice shaking. We pray, Bobaton said. And we hope it doesn't come here. That night, no one in the village slept. The elders burned herbs and chanted, their voices carrying through the still air. The rest of us stayed in our huts, huddled together. I sat with my mother and little sister, staring at the door, waiting for something to happen. And then it came. At first, it was just a low rumble, like distant thunder. Then the ground began to shake. The sound of roots dragging through the dirt grew louder, closer. Someone screamed, and I peeked out of the window. The baobab was at the edge of the village. Its branches stretched out, brushing against the roofs of the outer huts. It let out that horrible groaning sound again, and I swear I saw shadows moving around it, spirits, maybe, or just tricks of the moonlight. People started running. Some grabbed their children and fled into the fields. Others tried to hide in their homes. I wanted to run too, but my mother grabbed my hand. Stay still, she whispered. If you don't move, it won't see you. I don't know if that was true, but I listened. We stayed there, holding our breath, as the baobab moved through the village. It didn't stop at any one hut. It just kept dragging itself forward, its roots tearing up the ground. By morning, the baobab was gone. It left a trail of destruction, uprooted plants, broken fences, and deep gouges in the earth where its roots had passed. No one knew where it went. Some said it returned to the dry riverbed. Others said it was still wandering. Baba called a meeting. We need to make peace with the spirits, he said. Offer them what they are owed. So we gathered what we could, food, water, small trinkets, and took them to the place where the baobab had stood. The elders prayed, asking for forgiveness. I didn't believe it would work, but I joined them. I didn't want to see the tree again. It's been a week now, and the village is quiet. People are starting to relax, going back to their fields and chores. But I can't stop thinking about that night. I can't forget the sound of the roots dragging through the dirt or the way the baobab's trunk twisted like it was alive. Sometimes, at night, I think I hear it again, a faint rumble, far away. And I wonder, is it really gone? Or is it still walking, looking for someone else who doesn't believe?